Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to welcome Andrew Campbell back to the podcast for this special Christmas weekend episode, talking about one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Silent Night, Bloody Night, released in November of 1972. But it's going to be a fun chat, Andrew. What do you say?
It is, yes. Yes, excited to be back. I would say this is definitely one of the harder ones to have to sit and watch. I watched it over many viewings.
Oh, okay, not just one.
Not just one. I had to take some breaks in between.
You watched it like a limited series?
I mean, I really kind of did. It was, yeah. I mean, there were some elements that were good. I was extremely confused for a lot of it. I had to rewind a few parts. I was like, what's going on? But I'm always down for like a horror Christmas movie. Like,
yes,
it's like I'm the kind of guy who once it hits November 1st, I'm Christmas. Like
okay.
I will take down the Halloween and put Christmas right up. Like I'm already doing it. And so putting them both together, like two of my favorite things. I'm like, okay, great. Like horror and Christmas, like it's great. That's why I like Conjuring too. That's why I love it so much. I was like, it takes place during Christmas time. There's all this Christmas music going on, and I was like, this just adds into the whole, supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, and it's not.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's because when we think of Christmas season, we think of just joy and everyone's happy, everyone's together, singing carols and having great meals, and you don't really think of like scary or horror during this time. And that's what makes like Christmas horror films and Christmas horror books too so fantastic. I just love the mix. I've written two myself. I've written two novels that mix like the Christmas season with like a really disturbing horror story. I've done it twice and I really enjoy that. There's something just kind of eerie about mixing the two. When done well, it can be really great. Nosferatu is the book by Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, is a really cool book that blends Christmas with the horror genre, and so many great movies as we'll get into. So we're recording this. We're not quite into mid-November yet, but you're on the Christmas train.
Absolutely, yeah. Even though I'm wearing Jurassic Park today, I have this, my favorite thing I pretty much wear every day during December. I got this Christmas sweater. It's the Grinch, and it's like the classic Grinch design. It's just his head on a green sweatshirt. I got it from Walmart for like $10 when I was in Great Bend, Kansas, for work, which is literally middle of nowhere, Kansas. You have to take a flight to Denver, then a flight to Hayes, Kansas, then drive an hour to get there. So it's a very, like, they don't even have an airport. So and I found it there, and oh my God, I fell in love. And I should have worn it today, but I don't have it with me right now. I just took it out of storage. I have a chest that I keep all of my winter clothes in, and I swapped everything out last week and busted out that sweatshirt. I'm very excited to wear. But yeah, I love Christmas. And it was really funny. I was just thinking about when we watched, oh gosh, when we did the one with Donald Pleasance in it. What was it called again?
Wake and Fright, the horror film Wake and Fright.
Yes. Well, that took place during Christmas break for the teachers.
Oh, right. That's I forgot about that.
And I because I remember I was like, oh, I think we discussed it. I was like, oh, I love when they add Christmas elements into a movie. It wasn't very Christmassy throughout the movie, but like the fact that it's Christmas time, they're going away for Christmas break, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
we love some freaky Christmas stuff, but yeah, this was this was interesting.
Yeah, so some people wait till after Thanksgiving, and then there's other people that are like November 1st. I've even seen some people, I think someone from Queer Eye, like October 31st. Their tradition is that on the night of October 31st, they put up their Christmas decorations. I'm like, you gotta at least wait one more day.
Wait one more day. Yeah, well, you know what? It's funny because I at work I decorated my my desk with all Christmas stuff on Friday, just a couple of days ago, and and then it opened up a discussion with the office because everyone's just like, it's not even, some people are like, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. And I
Right.
was like, I don't care. Because people are now saying, like, great clarification is that Thanksgiving is a holiday, Christmas is a season. So, like,
Yeah.
you gotta enjoy it a little more. And in my opinion, it's like, Christmas decorations make me happy. They make me feel like relaxed and just like excited. So, like, why not have that for longer than just, December 1st to 25th. So I'm like, I'm gonna keep it around, get some serotonin out of it, and then yeah, enjoy it. So that's
That's
that.
a great point. I've never heard it put
Yeah.
that way. Like Halloween is a season from early September to late October, and
Hmm.
Christmas is a season from early November to late December, whereas Thanksgiving is just a day.
Yeah, it's a day.
Nobody has like a Thanksgiving month, like
No,
season.
exactly. Like, you
So
can't,
that's
like,
a good
what are
point.
you gonna build up to? You can't really build up to anything.
To a
It's
great
like,
meal.
oh, to a great meal and Black Friday shopping, which isn't even fun anymore
Ugh.
because everything's done. Oh, hey guys, we're open the stores at 6 p.m. Thanksgiving. I'm like, well, that's not the point. The point is, like, I love Black Friday shopping.
Mhm.
My brothers and sisters and I, sisters, I have one sister, um, and my mom, like, we would, Thanksgiving would be done. Our Thanksgiving tradition was we'd have Thanksgiving with my family, the big extended family, and then at nighttime we meet up with our next door neighbors, and we would all have like desserts and stuff together, and
Mhm.
then that would go until like 11 p.m. or so, and then we would go out at midnight to go wait in lines for like Target and Old Navy. And you wait in the freezing cold with hot chocolate, and you wait for the stores open at 1 a.m. and it's super fun. And they don't do that anymore. And, like, I don't know, to me it allowed you to enjoy your Thanksgiving and just, like, enjoy time with your family, and then you get to go shopping, at 1 a.m. And that I loved it. I always loved uh
I like
thing to do. And
shopping Thanksgiving weekend. Was never one to get up at 2 in the morning and go down there for everybody just colliding against each other for those deals. That was never a important
yeah,
thing to me.
that was a little too scary. I would never do that. I would only go to a Best Buy a lot just to get the movies. They always had movies. They're like $5, like
Five
Blu-rays. And
$5
I know,
Blu-ray.
like, I went and I got like the Avenger. Yeah, I got the Avengers on Blu-ray, and then I got Moonlight on Blu-ray. And I think what else? I think I got Easy on Blu-ray, like, all at once. It was like $5 each, and I was just like just collecting them.
This is like six in
Uh,
the morning.
yeah, yeah,
I gotta get up early, get down to Best
gotta
Buy
get
for
my
that
movies
$5 copy
for
of
this $5
Moonlight.
bin. Yeah, exactly. And oh, I love it. I think it's so much, because also then we go out to like Steak and Shake, which would be open 24/7. We would like,
Mhm.
it would be packed, and you get fries and ice cream and stuff. And it was a whole event, and I miss it a lot. I miss doing that. This Thanksgiving, my boyfriend and I are going to Sedona for the weekend.
Oh, cool.
I'm very excited for. And then I also just got got our tickets to go see Glass Onion, the new Knives Out sequel. I'm
Yes.
very excited for. But they're
Mhm.
playing in theaters for just like 1 week, so we're gonna see it on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And you know what? The tickets are like, the theater's already packed.
Why, I thought I heard that they're only playing it in theaters for 1 week,
Yeah,
and then
they
it's
are.
going to go away and then come to Netflix Christmas weekend. That's what
Yep.
I heard.
Yes,
So I want to see
that's
it
their
with an
plan.
audience. Like I want to see it
I do too.
on a big screen.
Yeah, and yeah, I would get your tickets early, just because the one I bought, I mean, it's on the Sunday at like 6:40 p.m. and the theater is already halfway packed.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I was super surprised by that, but luckily we got good seats. And
That's another thing I
it's
love.
great,
Yeah,
great.
that's another thing I love about this season, Christmas season, is which I am like, it's November 13th. I'm starting to slide into it. My partner and his best friend believe that we're only allowed to really celebrate Christmas on the day, which I will
Yeah.
always just push against. I'm like, no, I'm playing the music in my car. I'm going to
Oh
enjoy
yeah.
at least a month or so of, of Christmas music and things. But this is the time of year we also get great movies. You just mentioned Glass Onion. I just saw on Instagram you said you really loved Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. You gave it a
Yes,
9 out
I
of 10.
did. Yes, at nine. Yeah, it's so I really loved it, and I think just lately some of the I think a lot of people have agreed that like some of these Marvel movies the past couple of years after Endgame have not been the best, and because the budget, you can tell the budget was just really like much
Mm.
lower for them.
Okay.
Um, and this one, and that's what I noticed the most is that like, oh, how does it look? Like
Mhm.
like Thor: Love and Thunder was good, but I was like, yeah, there's a lot of CGI, a lot of just
Yeah,
like,
that one didn't work for me at all.
it just yeah, I was just like, I enjoyed it, but I was like, I can tell this one is not at the budget most of them are. And same with like Multiverse of Madness. I was like, this is not really the you know, it doesn't look the way it typically looks. But Wakanda Forever looked really, really good. There are only a couple of scenes where I'm like, ooh, that green screen in the back does not look very good. And it was only just like, a 1 minute little scene like twice. And I was like, everything else though, you can tell they shot on location. They shot at many different countries.
Right.
It seemed, and I really appreciate that they didn't just make it all CGI and green screens. They really were in the element, and I love that. And the story is very strong. The characters are wonderful. Um, I loved the scene. There were a lot more screen time for
Yeah.
characters that I didn't expect to have as much screen time. And it was handled very well. Especially with Chadwick's passing.
Yeah. The
They
tributes to him
handled
are
it
great.
very well. Yeah, it was really good, and the ending is very touching. I did tear up quite a
The
lot
most
in the
important
end.
mid-credit scene, I think, in the history of Marvel movies. Like, if you got up when it cut to the credits, you
Yeah.
missed a big scene. Like, that was one of the best scenes in the whole movie
Oh, it was
after the credits.
fantastic. I mean, it was. I mean, it was more so it's part of the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
'cause these are the post credits are like set up for stuff, but this one was definitely like a huge plot element that I didn't see coming. And I really loved it. So you saw the movie as well. What did you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a little messy, I thought it could have had a little bit more focus. It's kind of all over the place. I didn't think we
It
needed
does,
those
yeah,
scenes with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
yeah,
Like, some of that felt like that belonged in like a Marvel series or something on Disney Plus, and I'm like, no, 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 let's keep this tight and keep this more focused. But I love the look of it, and the costume design was amazing. And
yes.
I
Oof.
am a lifelong huge Angela Bassett fan. I love her
Oh my
work. I think she's great. And that one scene where she goes off was so great. That's the
God.
scene. I was
Ooh.
like clenching my fist. I was like, yes, I was waiting for this moment. You get a little tease of it in the trailer, so you knew a little bit of the scene, but there's more
Hmm.
to it after the lines from the
Yeah.
trailer where she starts tearing up and like just like she's shaking with pain. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, yes, Angela.
She was phenomenal. And also, oh my gosh, she's so ripped. I love it. I was just
she
watching
she is
like
the most stunningly beautiful woman of her 60s. She's 64. And if you
and
see her in the interviews and things that she just did the last few, I mean, she looks like maybe 50,
yeah,
maybe 50.
maybe.
And even then,
She's
like,
so good.
she could probably pass for 41, and
Oh,
everyone would just
absolutely, yeah.
nod and go, yeah.
Sounds about right.
And she's so talented. I love her work in What's Love Got to Do with It from the 90s, which is still to date her only Oscar nomination.
Wow.
And so I don't think it's going to happen because nobody from a Marvel movie has ever gotten a nomination. Like,
Yeah.
nobody. So I don't think, but I was like, man, this would be a cool first one for it to
Yeah.
happen. I think she needed one more great scene
Hmm.
before what happens, which we won't spoil. But I really liked it. And there's so many great movies coming out. I can't imagine 50 years ago, Andrew, like seeing like what's in theaters, what's around, and we decide let's go see Silent Night, Bloody Night, Thanksgiving weekend, which is when this came
Yeah.
out.
Yes, the
So
movie
let's
we're here to talk about.
so yeah. So just if you are a diehard Silent Night, Bloody Night fan, and you came on to this episode of Film at 50 to get like a really deep, thoughtful analysis of this movie scene to scene, you have come to the wrong place. Because I mean, I have some things to say about it. I've got some pieces of trivia, but yeah, this was a slog for an 81-minute movie. I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. Yep.
Here's the biggest problem with the movie, Andrew. It's boring, which is like a no-no for horror films,
Hmm.
especially a low-budget slasher movie. Now, I do give it a little credit. It's before the slasher craze. This is 72. Even Black Christmas, which is a much better Christmas horror film, as we'll talk about at the end, that's 74. We're 6 years away from Halloween. If this same story, this same movie had come out 10 years later, in 82, it would look completely different. But there's not really slasher films being made in 72.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason why the movie looks so odd and its pacing is so weird, is because we haven't really found that voice yet for that
Hmm.
genre, that subgenre. So there is that going for it. But I'm just like, this is clearly a very low budget effort. The film stock looks terrible and the acting's bad, but the director of this movie is trying to make like a Shakespearean tragedy. It's
Yes.
like, what the hell are you
Yes.
doing?
Like I was like, when has a horror movie ever had a narrator? Like, what's going on? And a narrator, like some random
Flashbacks.
person.
And then we have the film stock looks horrendous.
It
And
does
then
look
we
bad.
have flashbacks where they like saturate the film, they give it like this sepia tone kind of a
Hmm.
thing where it's almost unwatchable. Like you can't even see what's happening. It's so dark and murky. And at the end of the movie, we get a flashback scene. I think it's 1950 Christmas Eve, I think is the
Hmm.
date. And it
Yeah.
goes on for like 7 minutes.
It
And
goes
you
on
don't
for
know
so
who anyone
long.
is. It's very confusing.
It's
And I'm
very
like, this
confusing.
is the finale of your movie?
Yeah. It's like, oh, and well, yeah, I feel like flashbacks don't work in a horror movie. Like they just don't work. Like we don't
With
care
a
about these
narrator.
people within there. And there's so every single time it would just go to like, whatever that woman's name was. Um who was just like I couldn't stand her. But she like when they're having her narration, going, and they would just go to like instead of showing like video footage of her, they're showing like a photo of her. I'm like, why are you showing like
Right.
this
It's like we're
show?
watching a
Like
documentary.
I'm like let her eyes move around. I was like, this is so stupid. Yeah, it um that whole last 15 minutes, I started getting on my phone. I was just like, okay. Like the whole it was so hard to watch. The yeah, that saturation they used was just really bizarre. And also like it's like they blacked out a lot of like the faces and everything in those flashbacks. And I was like, is everyone just like have a huge head? I was so lost. And
Yeah, I read
um
a weird piece of trivia that they shot this movie in the fall of 1970, and then
yeah,
they did post-production, all the editing in the summer of 72. So
that's so bizarre.
the film wrapped before we hit New Year's Day of 71, apparently. And then a year and a half goes by, nothing is done with the footage, and then they get together year and a half later to cut it together. It comes out for the first time in November of 72. So I feel like there could have been a fresher take, at least on the editing part of it, if they had done it like in
Hmm.
the spring of 71, like let's just do this. But I don't read about that very often. Usually you're like editing while the movie is completing photography. You're not just
Hmm.
sitting on footage for a year and a half. So that might have played a role in the confusing nature of the editing too.
Yeah, was it budget? Did you do a budget or did it
I
make them?
assume it had probably to do with they didn't have the money to finish post production or to
Yeah,
start it, so maybe they had to wait for additional funding to come in.
that reminds me. I mean, we're always able to be Scream into the discussion.
We
The
did well.
Scream TV.
That was
We
like
did
20
really well.
minutes
We did
before
really
we
good.
brought up Scream and Wes Craven.
But I remember when the VH1 Scream TV series filmed, and then they
Ooh.
did nothing for it for like I think 3 years. They did nothing with it.
Oh, right. I remember that. They
Because like Queen
shot the season
Latifah
1.
produced it. So they filmed the first two seasons. There was MTV that was like a completely separate story. Like they weren't using the OG Ghostface mask, and then VH1 got the rights to Scream, and they had the original costume and everything, and they filmed it all. Like Tyler Posey was in it. This guy from Vine was in it when Vine was still around.
Are you talking about season
Um,
3?
Season three, yeah,
Seasons 1 and 2 came out fairly quickly after shooting, but
yeah.
season 3 they sat on for a while. Yeah.
Yes, and I know it's because of budget stuff. Like, uh, I think Queen Latifah was a producer of it, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, and I just remember I was like, oh, like we're getting a season three, a completely like reboot. I was like, okay, cool. And I waited like 2 or 3 years to see it, and then it was just god awful.
It was really bad. I watched the show because I'm a Scream
Of course,
completist. I'll
yeah,
watch anything to do with that character. And I liked a lot of seasons 1 and 2. Well, it wasn't
I did too.
great, but it was fun. And then season 3, I remember like, oh, I'll watch it and then it took forever.
Took
And then
forever.
wasn't
Yeah,
it like 6 episodes? It was really short.
yeah. They filmed. I think they cut it. I think they cut how many episodes there were because they just filmed. They released it over like a 3-day weekend. That was like Friday was 2 episodes, Saturday 2 episodes, Sunday 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they did it. And then it was just like, hey, remember Teen Wolf that was canceled? There was that one guy who was in it. Yeah, it was.
It's
That was
not a good practice to sit on things for years. Like,
yeah.
probably the most famous recent example of the last 20 years would be a movie called Margaret. Have you heard of Margaret with Anna Paquin, directed by Kenneth Lonergan, the Oscar-winning director of Manchester by the Sea and You Can Count on Me? He makes
Oh
this
no.
small drama with a big cast. It's Anna Paquin. It was Matt Damon.
Oh
It had
wow.
some big people in it, and they shot it in the fall of 2005, and it finally came out in the fall of 2011.
Whoa.
And there were like
That's
budgetary
insane.
problems. The director was spending way too much time in the editing room. So I think they took it away from him for a while, and then he got it back. And then Martin Scorsese's editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, she came in and helped, and it was like a long process. By the time the movie came out, Anna Paquin, she looked much older when that movie came out.
Yeah.
And then they
In six
finally
years.
dropped it. I think they just dropped it in a handful of theaters before it went to Blu-ray. And it's really good. It was
Oh,
one of the
okay.
best movies I saw, released in 2011. But it just took a while for it to
Just
come
took one.
out. So that was a rare circumstance where the finished product was actually pretty good. Usually
Yeah.
they're kind of dumpy. I mean, it's not to
Yeah.
say that they sat on this footage for Silent Night, Bloody Night for like 5 years or something. Then it would have looked really weird. But then did you read about like the release schedule? They kept changing the title. They released it more than once in theaters, and then it became
Yeah.
a cult midnight movie in the 80s on television. That's how people
Yes.
started discovering it.
So after I watched the movie, I was watching some reviews on YouTube, and oh my, there's some guy who reviewed it. It had a ton of views, like 100,000 views of his review.
Like a modern
He was,
review of it?
yeah, and I had to turn it off after 5. He was terrifying. He was really scary. I had to find out who this man was and send it over to you because, I felt like he was staring into my soul. Like he was a terrifying man reviewing this movie. He just had this like demonic voice, which sounds like extreme, but it does. He was just reviewing the movie, and he was just like, "I can't stand this," and he was like super intense about it. And I was like, and at first I thought, oh, this is like an opening little sequence. He's gonna get back to a normal attitude and voice in a second, right? And he didn't, and I was like, I had to turn off his review, even though it was like 20 minutes long, I think. And
why would a modern day review of this movie have 100,000 views on YouTube?
I don't even know.
Like, is there
So
that much interest in this movie?
yeah, that's what I thought. And then I watched this other guy. He was really nice. I'm like I know him. But it was like a 7-minute review, and he was just saying how it's one of his favorite movies. He was like, I watch almost every Christmas time and everything. And I was like, how do you do that?
Insane.
And he's like, the acting's good, the script is good. I'm like, okay, well, I turned it off after about 5 minutes. Like, okay, I think we're on different pages. And there's another guy who reviewed it that did. He was pretty negative, and I was like, okay, you're my guy. You're the guy that I can get some points off of too. But
I don't know how you could
and
watch this and give it a
three.
positive review.
I understand. Like, it's a weird atmosphere.
There's some things I liked.
Like, all the characters are really weird, and they gave me like the whole townspeople. I'm the whole townspeople. I don't know who they are really, but they were really off. But I think that's because of the plot twist, I guess. Can I discuss the ending of the movie now?
We're tearing this apart.
We're tearing
and
apart.
We're
Perfect. Love it.
talking the spoilers here.
Wonderful. Okay, so I may have completely misinterpreted this, but the people that he kills, uh, like Tess and the guy who does the bell,
Mhm.
um, had they been escaped mental patients?
I got the sense that by the end, you're supposed to believe that that house, that's kind of like the centerpiece of the movie, was used to be a mental institution, right?
Yes.
And when we have that
Yeah.
flashback at the end, like everyone in the home is a mental patient. Is
Oh,
that,
oh,
or most
I think
everybody?
he's okay. Is it? I guess is
I
the
don't get the sense
grandfather
that
who
those
is
people
killing
that he interviews
were
or talks to at
actually
the beginning
them.
were mental patients.
Okay,
We're supposed to believe
it
that
was
they
in
were a
his.
part of the. Okay.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah. So at first I was like, oh, because they were so weird and they talked really like they were. No one blinked was one thing I noticed. No one blinked, and the fact that what's your name Test collected had like 40 bird cages, um, and then the guy who rings the bell. I That led me to believe that like looking back, I was like, oh, were those people tests and all them were they had they been mental patients in that house and now they're just kind of outliving their life. But they also maybe killed um the daughter, Marianne. Was it Marianne? Mary Diane? What was her name?
Was it Marianne? I can look it up.
It was Mary. We'll say Marianne. That sounds right. I was like, oh, did they help kill her? But then now you're saying, oh, maybe the grandfather, when he was on his killing spree, like in his head, that's who they were, and that's why he killed
Oh,
them.
okay.
Either
The
way, I'm just like, I was again, I was so lost because there was a lot of talking
the
in
movie
those
makes
last 20
two
minutes.
two giant sins for a horror film. It's boring and it's very confusing. This movie is
They're
needlessly
so
confusing. There's
it's
so many
way
characters. You don't know like what everybody wants or how everyone's connected. The
yeah,
movie doesn't do a good job of really illuminating that. You just get a lot
yeah,
of death scenes and you're like, okay.
yeah. And well, it's like now one thing I did like the whole psycho thing with killing off the two, like to me the first main characters are
Mm.
killed off in the first,
Yeah,
what,
that's a good
40
scene. I
minutes.
like that scene.
I like that. I There were some jump scares. I did get a little startled by when he entered the bedroom and cut up those people with the axe. That made me that startled me for sure. And then when I guess it was the sheriff, when he went to the graveyard and
He just
he
goes,
just
ah.
he just popped out and hit him with like killed him with a shovel, and I was like, it happened very fast. There was no I feel like with a lot of
Lead
movies,
up.
even now, there's no suspense or lead up to it. It just happened really fast,
Mhm.
and that I thought was really cool. That I didn't expect that to happen, and I did appreciate that because yeah, that was a brutal scene when I mean, he was cheating on his wife, so I'm like,
Yeah,
you
with his
kind of deserve
mistress.
that with his mistress. And here's the thing: I thought the mistress and then the girl in the end of the movie, I thought they were the same person at first. When she was driving down the road and saw that guy, I was like, oh, did she just take his car? I guess her lover's car, but they were two different people, and I did not register. But um,
Yeah, some of the actors look similar to other actors in the movie,
yes,
especially
the
the younger
two,
women.
they looked. I mean, very tall, thin woman with really long dark hair, and like very long faces. I thought, yeah, I literally thought they were the exact same person until like when it went to the daughter, or sorry, the daughter, the mayor's daughter doing Christmas stuff after the family had, or after the lawyer and his mistress were just murdered. I thought
Mhm.
there was a flashback. I was like, oh, we're gonna see what she's about now. And then it took me about a couple minutes, like, oh wait, that's completely a different person. It could also because like the the quality of the footage isn't too great, and so nothing. I was like, oh, that's her because I can't really tell anything else. Um, yeah, I
Like
mean,
it did it have the same quality of film as Last House on the Left? That's the only one we've
no,
talked about that but
yeah,
even Last House, there's like
the
it's a
nighttime scenes
little
are better.
better,
It
the
is
film
better,
stock.
yeah. Especially like the nighttime stuff was way better. The nighttime shots were, at least you could see it. Like In this movie, I couldn't see a single thing. They filmed it at nighttime. I was like, "Are you not supposed to film at nighttime?" I don't know too much
Now,
about what you got to do, but you couldn't see anything.
yeah, to be fair, so this movie, pretty soon after its release, went into the public domain. It was never actually copyrighted. So over the decades, it's gone through a lot of different releases. And so I think if the movie had been better taken care of, it would look better
Yeah,
today. But because it's just gone through all sorts of companies, and it's if you look it up on YouTube, there's like 10 different like YouTube videos of this movie. Like they're all over.
oh, there are,
Yeah.
and
So
different names like Death House. I'm like, "Oh, wait, what's
Death
Death House?"
House. Death House with only one H in the middle
Mhm.
was like, as an English teacher, I was struggling with that
Deeth House.
one. But yeah, so the scene of the two who get killed in the bed was good because you're not expecting it. They're kind of set up to be the two of the main characters.
Yeah.
And it's like the only death scene in the movie where you really get to see it in explicit detail with the gore and the blood and her
Mhm.
hand reaching back. And I mean, you don't see it in like crazy amount of detail, but I feel like most of the death scenes is just like someone's eyes opening big and then a scream, and then we cut to the next scene. Like
Yeah.
this director does not really show very many of the kills, which I guess can be a choice, but in a movie like this, I think we should be given a few more death scenes that we see. And
I
so I
agree.
thought that scene in the bed was good. My other thing I really liked about it was the killer speaking on the phone felt very
Yeah.
like ahead of its time, before Black Christmas, before When a Stranger Calls. His like creepy whispery voice on the phone I thought was really good. I like that part
Yeah.
about it.
And yeah, I did like that part. His voice was quite. He continued to even at the end of the movie when he was chasing down the mayor's daughter. Like he was still whispering like that, and I was like, "What is your deal?" Like this, that was, and when he was calling himself Marianne, like this is Marianne, and I was like, he's lost it. Uh, and yeah, that element was pretty good. I really did wish they had the whole. I think it's more so like a slasher, you know, cliche now, which is always fun. Is like you don't get to see like no one discovers the bodies, which is like the I mean, always like a fun part. Like no one finds the lawyer and the mistress in the bed, and
Oh, you like those
uh,
parts in horror films when they
yeah, it's like
discover the body?
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I think I was kind of expecting that to come home and then like maybe everyone's sprawled out everywhere and just make it a nice little gore bath. But
Someone comes
uh,
in. Oh my god.
oh my gosh, and then maybe we would get some good acting out of it. But
Yeah.
oh my god,
If
I
you
don't
like if you
know.
like that kind of thing, have you seen the Chucky TV show yet?
I have not, but I hear great things
I
about it.
just I finally got Peacock. I was like kind of like I don't need Peacock, but it has season 1 of Chucky and I wanted to watch it. So I got Peacock, and it's 8 episodes, and every episode there's at least 2 big kill scenes. And every time someone walks in and they go, you and it's like, and this kid just in the first episode, he finds Chucky at like a garage sale, this like 14-year-old kid, and he brings him home. And then everybody in his world just one by one starts getting killed off, and no one can figure out why, but we always get a really brutal death scene. I mean, it's really shot for like an R rating. It's not a PG-13 or anything.
Wow.
So it's like a real movie, but just extended as a series. And there's a lot of scenes of people discovering bodies. There's a guy who gets killed at the hospital with like he's got like 50 syringes in his chest,
Ooh.
like just with just pumped full of poison and all sorts of stuff. And
Ooh.
and, and there's a part where the like one of the I think the nurse walks in and she's like she just starts screaming. And so if you like that kind of thing, Chucky, you will enjoy. But
Yeah, I might have to check that
yeah,
out. I hear great things.
we don't get much of that here. I was intrigued by the opening of this man flailing, running out of a
Yes.
house on fire. Like the opening scene was like, okay, I'm into this. Like it's gonna be good.
Start off with the bang for
I
sure.
thought it was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is like a haunted house story or something, and this guy, something happened to this guy, and we're gonna solve the mystery. And but then we get the voiceover, and we get the documentary style, like just zoom ins on like a head, like with the sepia tone around it, and I'm like, what? And then it
Yeah.
just like you could tell within about 5 minutes, maybe 10, like oh, this is going to be kind of a slog, because there's not really a vision here. It's just like, we're going to make a horror film, but it's not really a horror film. It's more of like a mystery with lots of scenes of people talking. One of the
So much
actors in the
talking.
movie died right after filming
Oh,
wrapped. James Patterson, who played Jeffrey, he died of cancer about 6 months after they wrapped filming. And so when they went to do the post production, they hired another actor to dub every one of his lines.
wow.
So isn't that the main guy, like who comes into that station and is talking to all those people, because his voice sounded off. It sounded like dubbing to me.
Oh, you know what? Yes, it did. That's really funny you say that.
I'm like,
Yeah,
that
'cause
doesn't sound like it's coming out of his mouth.
that's right.
And now I know
I
why.
remember. I do remember that, and yeah, I was like, oh god, this quality is shit. Because I that thank you. That's really cool. I might have to watch it again. That you leave that little scene again, because yeah, I thought it sounded very very off.
Yeah.
Uh, because and that's sad. For sure, and but that's
His
good
performance got to
clarification.
live on. Another director might have been like, we can't dub him reshooting his scenes with someone else,
Yeah.
but his performance lives on. I don't know if he would have wanted that. But so a few more things about the movie here. So the film's working title while they were shooting it was Zora, Zora. Any reason why? I don't know.
That okay.
I don't know if I would have picked it for the podcast if that was its title.
Absolutely
But
not.
star Mary Warrenoff recalled of the production, Silent Night, Bloody Night was terrible. I think this is years later. She was interviewed about it. We were given a weird script, and the director tried to spark it up. He tried to make it an artistic statement, but it just didn't work. It didn't even make sense. Most people who saw it couldn't understand what was going on, which is not good for a horror film. That's what she said. That's an actress from the movie.
Now, who she play?
Mary Warrenoff. So I'm assuming she was the lead, like the one we
The
are with at the
narrator.
very end, the narrator. Let me just double check here. But we talk about this before in the podcast. Like, usually an actor from a movie years later will not talk negative. I mean, I guess if they're out of the industry, if they're out of the business, maybe. But usually, even if everyone hates it, you go, oh no, it was fine. I mean, occasionally I think like Kyle MacLachlan said some bad things about Showgirls after that came out, and I think he regretted that later or something. But so she played Diane Adams. Diane. That was
Okay.
was that the main girl?
I think that was
He
I
was
think
like
that was
walking away at the end
Walking in the Woods.
with the bulldozer. That was such a weird ending. Like, we
It was
end with
so
her
weird.
saying like, but the house will not hurt anyone anymore because we're tearing it down. And then there's like a bulldozer coming at the camera. And I'm like, it's not a haunted house movie. If it was about evil spirits in the house, that ending would make sense.
And like, I'm sorry, you were there for like 5 minutes. Calm down. I mean, sure, her dad died. Also, that
That
part
was her
was
dad, right? Who's flailing in the
yes,
beginning
yeah,
on
and
fire.
no,
That wasn't her dad.
I thought her dad was the mayor.
I don't know. It
Oh
was
no,
like the guy who dies at the beginning, his house stays dormant for 20 years, right? And then
yeah,
year 21, it like goes on the market or something. And then the guy who gets killed in the bed, whose lines were dubbed over, he is there like executing the will for like
yeah.
the dead guy's son who's trying to sell the house.
Yes.
I don't know
So,
this
but I
movie.
thought, didn't they? I thought I thought that he faked his death. I mean,
The guy in
the
the first
burn,
scene, he faked his
he
death,
burned. Yeah, he like the burning guy. I thought he was still alive.
and then we meet him again later in the movie.
Isn't he? Isn't he the killer?
Is that the killer? I couldn't
That's
tell.
what. I think he's the killer. I
Okay.
thought he was. Oh my! See, in
Spoiler
this,
alert, Andrew. What do you think? I've watched this movie?
I know.
I
Watch it
was
for
a
me.
little confused at the end who exactly
This
what the
is
kill.
a
I was so checked
sign
out at
of
that
a bad
point.
movie. I mean, this is a sign of a bad movie. You don't even know who the killer was. So my I was like, hey, yes, I believe that the man who was on fire
Faked
was
his death for 20
faked his
years.
death, faked his death, and then because he said he lived in and out of asylums
Oh,
for
okay.
over 20 years, and he pretended to be somebody else. For some reason, he also wrote this
And
down in a
then he
diary,
hears that they're doing something with the evil house, and so he starts
and
a
then he
killing
escapes
spree.
because we saw the guy escape from the. Remember, like it was the point of view, the POV of when the mental guy escapes the hospital, jumps in the car and drives away. I think that was the guy,
Okay.
the guy who caught on fire. That is what my interpretation of it is. That is maybe the plot
So
was so
he's the
bad I have
one
to
who
make it
gets
up.
shot at the end on the staircase and falls to his death. That's the
Yes,
same
I
guy as the
believe that was
beginning
the
scene.
grandfather. I I think so. I'm
But his voice and his sounds so young, like when he's doing the whisper, it like sounds like a 25-year-old. So I was
maybe
maybe he
maybe
was older. I don't know.
I need to read like the synopsis of this movie and figure that out.
Should we?
Uh,
Is there a short one we can just
I'm like
read,
Wikipedia.
read to our listeners? This is how confusing this movie is.
It is.
Um,
There's just so many names as well. There's so many name drops that you just can't. Like, there's so many butlers. I'm like, okay, how many? Like, come on.
okay, it's not that long. It's 3 paragraphs. So let me just read. This is the synopsis. Okay,
Okay,
so wait, this is
this
how
is
this is how
embarrassing.
organized I am.
Yeah,
I looked up the synopsis for Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is a much better movie. Have you
it
seen
is
any of
better.
those? Have you seen the
Um,
Deadly
um,
Night movies?
I have not, but one of the guys I watched the review of, they'd mentioned those. The Silent Night, Deadly Night.
If you want a wild ride, it's not good, but Silent Night Deadly Night Part 2 is hilarious.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, so I've never done this before. Let's just kind of work our way through this plot, okay? Because
Okay.
this is how dedicated I am on Film at 50. We're going to really just break down the plot of Silent Night Bloody Night. Okay, so the movie opens on Christmas Eve, 1950. Wilfred Butler dies in a burning accident outside his mansion. The residence is then bequeathed to his grandson, Jeffrey. 20 years later, in 1970, lawyer John Carter comes there on Christmas Eve with his assistant and mistress, Ingrid, having been charged by Jeffrey to sell the house. Carter meets with the town's leading citizens, all those people. They all agree to buy the Butler mansion on behalf of the town for the bargain price of $50,000, which Jeffrey requires to be paid in cash the next day. Carter and Ingrid spend the night in the mansion and are brutally murdered in bed with an axe. After the murders, the killer places a crucifix in Ingrid's hand, proceeds to phone the sheriff, introducing himself as the house's owner and asking him to investigate Carter's disappearance. While talking with Tess, who forwards his call, the killer calls himself Marianne. Okay, we following it so far?
Yes, absolutely. I got it.
At nightfall, Jeffrey arrives at the mansion to meet with Carter, but he finds it locked and empty. He drives to the mayor's home where he meets Diane, the mayor's daughter. The mayor has gone to the bank to obtain the required cash, so she redirects Jeffrey to the sheriff. The sheriff heads to the mansion, but first stops at Wilfred's disturbed gravesite, where he's beaten to death with a shovel. Failing to locate the sheriff, Jeffrey returns to the mayor, where Diane tells him she has received phone calls for her father from someone named Marianne. Puzzled by the strange events, Jeffrey and Diane drive to the mansion, but stop after they find the sheriff's car. They go to the newspaper office where they meet Charlie, who informs them Tess has also gone to the mansion. Jeffrey and Charlie go after her while Diane researches the Butler's house's history. I mean, this is like insanity. Like, why is there so much plot in this stupid
There's
little
so
movie?
much.
Diane pieces together the Butler story. In 1930, Wilfred's wife died of tuberculosis. In 33, his 15-year-old daughter, Marianne, was raped and got pregnant. The son she gives birth to is Jeffrey, who was sent away to California. In 35, Wilfred converted the mansion into a mental hospital and had Marianne committed. Tess arrives at the mansion, finds the sheriff's car. She's greeted by the unseen killer who bludgeons her to death with a candlestick. And then Jeffrey, meanwhile, arrives at Tess's house, finds it empty. He returns to Diane at the newspaper office. Diane tells Jeffrey that based on her research, his mother did not die during his birth. Jeffrey and Diane depart together to the mansion. En route, they pass Charlie's car, which has been set on fire.
And Charlie is the sheriff, right?
Charlie is the sheriff. Wait, wasn't the sheriff killed? Wasn't he? Wasn't that the guy who was killed? Charlie.
Yeah, so is
Charlie is the town mute who owns the local newspaper.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and he has hands cut off. Yes, and they hit him and he hits him with the car on that.
So
okay.
They pass Charlie's car, which is set on fire. Moments later, Charlie throws himself at Jeffrey's car. Jeffrey runs him over, killing him. Examining the body, Jeffrey realizes someone has cut Charlie's hands off. At the mansion, now we're at the end, Jeffrey finds his grandmother's diary in the foyer, which reveals he was the one who got Marianne pregnant. The diary recounts how Wilfred grew hostile towards the hospital staff. So on Christmas Eve, 1935, he freed the hospital's patients, causing a massacre that resulted in Marianne's death. He then ended up faking his own death in 1950 and has been living anonymously in a nearby mental hospital. Jeffrey tells Diane that his grandfather is still alive and that the sheriff, Tess, and the mayor were all former inmates. Wilfred sought revenge for the death of Marianne. The mayor arrives at the mansion armed with a rifle, and he and Jeffrey open fire, killing each other. That was kind of a cool moment when they both hit the ground. The killer, revealed to be the elderly Wilfred Butler, finally appears. Diane grabs Jeffrey's gun and shoots him dead. A year later, Diane takes one last look at the mansion before it's destroyed by a bulldozer crew. So you're right, it's Wilfred, the older guy.
Okay.
So he faked his death, and he's the one they killed at the end.
Yes. Okay, there we go. I'm happy I'm not too crazy. I also forgot that Wilfred raped his daughter because he said, I fathered the child. I remember that.
Yeah. So whoever wrote that synopsis, man,
did a horrible job.
I'm doing a rare film at 50 applause because you figured it out, this film. That would have taken me probably a couple weeks to really I'd have to watch the movie 7-8 times and really go scene by scene. Okay, who is he? Who is she? What does he want? Why is he getting killed? I have to really.
Yes.
That would have taken me weeks to put together exactly what's happening here.
Yes. Okay. That was very helpful because it's just that's what I thought had been going on. I was I'm not sure about this.
Was it clear that part of that flashback was 35, not 50? Do we see the 35 flashback, or was that just mentioned through voiceover? How many times are we going back in time? I don't remember that.
So I'm thinking, was 1935 time? That was the really weird footage, right? The very saturated one.
Yeah.
And then I guess the 1950. I think when I looked at the 1950 stuff, was it just the ones? Yeah, I feel like it would have to be just the one time because just the opening, I guess, was the 1950s with him on fire. Because what's his name, Jeff?
That was 50.
He's definitely Jeff is older, so he's definitely not 20 years old. So that flashback at the end is not going back to 1950. That's going back to 1935. Yes.
Okay.
At least that's because that was when I guess he was young, teenager, had the baby. They sent him off to California, and now it is what? And now it's 40 years later after that. He wait, how old is his dad though? I feel like he
What? So that yeah, how old does that make him when we meet him
okay.
at the end? Like he's like
Let's
in
say
his
he's in his
60s,
I would
fifties,
say 70s, right? I
70s.
mean, if he's in his 30s, let's say in the 1930s, and then in the 1970s, it's been 40 years, so wouldn't he be like 70?
It'd be like if in the latest Halloween movie, Michael Myers was like old in his 60s. Oh wait,
Yeah. Oh wait, he was.
wait, he was.
And that part didn't really make any sense. Um,
So
oh
why
God.
is there so much plot? Like why are there all these little intricacy, like all of these intricate little like ties to what happened in 1930 and 35 and 50, and he faked his death and he was in a I mean it's just too much.
It's too
Keep it
much, and
simple.
it's all revealed so quickly in a like story like mode. It yeah, it was so confusing. It's like they had everything. It feels like it didn't work well, and then they just had to like reveal everything like they're like, oh, we gotta clean this up because people are confused. Let's just reveal everything in a long ass flashback and just
It should
confuse
have
the
just
heck of
opened
everyone.
with it can be a kid or an adult on Christmas Eve, like he's humiliated and or gets hurt and he fakes his death, goes into a mental asylum. 20 years later, he breaks out, kind of like Halloween a little bit, breaks out
A
on
little bit, yeah.
Christmas Eve. And especially when he finds out that like they're doing something with the house he used to live in, and he just goes berserk and starts
Halloween.
killing everyone involved. So yeah, it's kind of like Halloween. But like if it had just been more simple, like without all this
Yeah,
plot, I would have had a good time. It would have been fun.
yeah. And I mean, looking at that, I would say of now my favorite twist to it is, I mean, I'm assuming, yeah, the townspeople were in the mental institution before, right? I think because that does explain. I was like, if
Yeah.
he's a mute, maybe because the very interesting. I'm like, I mean, why is he a mute? Why is that important to the plot that he can't talk? And the fact that Tess has 40 birds. That's an interesting little plot point as well. So I think that is pretty that's a cool reveal, and and also that explains like why they were so weird. Why they didn't blink is my thing. I'm like, no one's blinking in this movie once, and that freaks me out. And the tone of them was just bizarre. Um, and so at least that's explained. I think that's
Yeah, I
cool.
was like, are
Had
these
it
aliens?
had maybe if they had like what's your name if Diane had been like going through stuff and saw a photo of like these people in the mental institution and saw like their names, like she saw the name Tess and Charlie or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, and saw that, oh my, she's like Tess and Charlie, oh wait, but that's them. That would have been a better reveal of that. Almost like in
Right.
the others when like Nicole Kidman finds the photos of
Mm.
um her dead housekeepers. I'm like, oh, and that part terrifies me. I think I did that on your Twitter thing. Like, what's the part that gave you nightmares? When you asked people that, and that's my number one. I was sobbing. Oh, I was actually gonna get back on the topic of Christmas movies.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you what's your favorite like Christmas themed movie that's not necessarily Christmas themed. Like I would say like Batman Returns. I adore
Oh
that
yeah.
movie. I
Mm-hmm.
love the Christmas elements to it, even though it's an action movie. It's one of my favorites ever. I love it.
Yeah, Batman Returns was one of the first like kind of like adult movies I saw in a theater. I was 6, I think. Let's
Hmm.
see. Yeah, I would have been 6 years old. That was one of the first adult films I saw, and I've just it's one that I always return to, and the more I watch it, it's like it is the Christmas element that makes it so eerie and just like memorable. I
Hmm.
love the way that Tim Burton blends the setting in with that story. So yeah, that's definitely up there. I'd have to think about that, like non-Chris, like movies that aren't about Christmas that I love. I mean, definitely
Yeah, I
Batman
like.
Returns would be up there.
Yeah, 'cause I definitely consider it a Christmas theme. And I'm like Edward Scissorhands as well. People consider that kind of Christmassy,
Right, Tim
because
Burton
there's
again.
like Tim Burton again. He likes Christmas.
Yeah.
I listen to the Batman Returns soundtrack pretty much. I probably at least once a week when I work. Uh, I listen to the entire way through most of the time because I love it. It's just my favorite like movie score like ever, and I I remember once I've always loved it. And I walked into my class once, one of my film editing classes, and my professor was playing it, and I was like, is this Batman Returns? He's like, yes, it's my favorite
Mm.
one ever. And I was just like, oh, I fell in love with him that day. I was just like, thank you so much. I was like, I like the fact that you're playing this during class, which is like my favorite as well. And we were just like discussing it for a bit. But yeah, it's just so good. That one, and also, I mean, Interstellar has a great soundtrack too. But I love Batman Returns very much.
Yeah, Batman Returns is my favorite next to The Dark Knight. I just think The Dark Knight is one of like the all-time great movies. So it's
it
hard for
really
me to
is.
like put Batman Returns above it, but it's definitely up there. Um, in terms of like favorite Christmas movies, I love It's a Wonderful Life, Christmas Vacation, Elf is up there. That movie is hysterical.
Oh yeah.
My favorite Christmas movie ever though is the animated short of The Grinch. Like that's my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Like the Boris Karloff narrated. That was a story I didn't think needed to be a 2-hour movie. I love Jim Carrey, but that's not one of my favorites. I know people love it, but
I love that.
I like the
That's my number one.
is your the Jim Carrey?
Jim Carrey one. Yeah.
Why?
I adore that movie. I think it's all. I remember. I also saw it in theaters. I mean, that's like one of a very early memory of mine of
Oh,
seeing it
okay,
in
maybe
theaters with my
nostalgia.
mom. It's
Yeah,
very nostalgic. I find it hysterical as well. Like I find now my other number one is also Muppet Christmas Carol, which
that's
is
a good one. Yeah.
just I adore that movie. I know it word for word. I know all the songs, and that was the one. That was my always my number one. Was Muppet Christmas. We watched it every Christmas Eve. My family
Yeah.
loved it. But The Grinch, I just think it's so funny. Like I generally just love that movie, and it did win an Oscar, so that's good too. It won Best Makeup, I believe, that year. Makeup design, something like that. It did win that, so I like that.
I was a diehard, I mean, not anymore, but I was at the time a diehard Jim Carrey fan. I loved his work. And I saw The Grinch opening weekend in theaters, and I'm like, eh. And that's
I
kind
like
of
it.
been my way. But I feel like I have warmed up to it a little bit more throughout the last 22 years. I feel like part of my problem with it is I just feel like it is a story worthy of about 30 to 40 minutes max, and it's 2 hours long, and it's like what?
It's yeah, it's quite long.
But that just the story of the Grinch. So we can just both say we love the Grinch and keep it at that.
We love the Grinch. Yes, we love the Grinch.
I still have
There's
not
also
seen the animated one from a few years ago.
I oh, it's so bad.
I
Actually,
never saw it. Yeah.
I saw that with my um with my mom, my dad, and my niece, and she was like 5, I guess, something like that. She did not even like it,
Mm.
which is like if a 5-year-old doesn't like an animated movie
Hmm.
and they say I don't like it very much, that means it's a bad movie. Benedict Cumberbatch playing the Grinch made no sense, but also the Grinch was like he wasn't mean enough. He was just kind of grumpy,
Hmm.
and like he loved Max, and I was like, but like he loved Max obviously, but like
Yeah.
he had like a love hate thing with him, and that's made him so fun. It's like they made him more like socially okay, which is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I remember I brought in Taco Bell to the theater. It was like 12 in the afternoon. I was like, I'm gonna eat Taco Bell, watch this night, and I almost fell asleep. It was just so bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Do
wasn't
you think the diehard Silent Night, Bloody Night fans are still with us, Andrew?
I don't think so.
I think they left.
They,
I think anyone still listening just likes our banter. That's all
yeah,
that we have going for us at
that's
this
all we
point.
have.
So let's start kind of wrapping things up on the movie today. I mean, I apologize, listeners, if you're following along, you want more information about this movie. It's just it was one of those like, let's do this movie as a Christmas weekend episode. We both watched it. It was a slog. There's not a whole lot to say about it. I mean, I do not say this very often on Film at 50. Do not bother with this one.
Yeah,
Like,
don't
don't
bother with
bother. It's just like it's a waste of time. Like, there's
it.
nothing
100%.
really outside of like, I mean, I wouldn't give it like a 0. I think I'd give it
Yeah,
like a 1.
a one.
Like it's got a
I
couple
would give it a one.
things. The killer talking in the phone, I thought was kind of cool in that this is many years
Yes.
before some of the big slashers that are coming. I don't feel like you get a whole lot of that around 72 in horror films. So there was that. But that's
Yeah.
like what, 90 seconds max, 2 minutes of the movie? And it's 80
Yeah.
minutes
I
long.
mean, it. And when he was whispering in the end with Diane, like actually in person, I was like, dude, like she can't hear you. And yeah, that was a good element for
Yeah.
sure.
But so let me just share a couple more things about the movie here. So the film got a limited release, Andrew, shocker, in November of 1972 under the title Night of the Full Dark Moon. That was the original title when it came out. So it went from Zora to Night of the Full Dark Moon. And then they re-released the movie. It didn't do well, shocker. And then they re-released the movie in the spring of 73 under the title Silent Night, Bloody Night. And then it did a little better. And it continued to screen under this title through December of 73. So I think it was kind of playing around the country on and off throughout all of 73. And then they brought out the film again in 81 under the title Death House.
Yes.
1H.
1H. Yeah. Yeah. When I saw that, when I watched, I was like, what? And I told you, I was just like, wait, I was like, I'm confused. I was like, the movie's called Silent Night, Bloody Night, but the title card is that. I was like, I'm lost.
This boggles my mind. I've seen this with a couple other smaller films. They will release the movie like 3 times under 3 different titles in different years. So I'm like, okay, so like you were one of those people who saw it in 73, and then they advertise a new movie in 81 called Death House, and you go to see it and you're like, it's the same movie I saw years ago. That's such false advertising. I don't like that.
It's really weird. And you know what? There's a movie that came out not that long ago. Oh, maybe like five years ago, I guess.
Where they
I'm not
did
quite
something like
sure.
this?
Where they did that. They were advertising this movie, had a different title, um, and they had built it up, and I had so many previews of it. And then I thought it come out, and then all of a sudden, I'm watching the movie. It's like a year later, and I'm watching, in theater, and then the preview for the exact same movie comes up, but it's a completely different title. And I was like, wait, I thought I had like a weird, like, I was like, am I having a stroke? Like, what the hell?
Deja vu.
I was like, what's deja vu or a stroke? Either one. And I was like so lost, and I googled it, and it turns out that they had, it was like I think MTV is a little mess, I guess. But they had been apparently just the numbers of what like the anticipated audience was really bad, and so it was bought by somebody else, and they kind of completely redid the marketing for it, and they ended up changing the title for the movie as well. I forget what it was called. I have to find that out. But yeah, to me that was the first time I ever saw that actually happen, like in real life, where they actually just completely scrapped it and just changed everything.
That's interesting, because that just feels wrong to me. Even if most of the people who go to see it don't know about or aware of the previous version, it's like I feel like once you release a movie, that's it. Like you can't just like pull it back, and then you can re-release it as the same title. That is okay.
Yeah.
There was a movie that we talked about called Billy Jack, which came out in limited release in 1971 and flopped. It did not do well. And then the director like bought the rights back to his own movie. He took it upon himself to release it, to market it in 1973, and it became one of the biggest hits of the year. The same movie. So that is okay with me. Okay, take it out and then bring it back, maybe with a new marketing campaign, but don't change the title and make people think it's a new movie. That I don't agree with.
Yeah. That's really weird. And
Death House.
It's Death House.
And then it sells. They sell the rights to television, and it starts becoming popular. Actually, it was before Death House. This would have been in 1978. The film started being shown on Elvira's Movie Macabre, part of a Fright Night television series. It became a staple of late night TV in the November and December months throughout the 1980s. Like they would play this movie around Christmas season on this like late night channel, and it did well. Like people were tuning in, I guess. And despite the film's dark subject matter, the network chose to air it at Christmas time each year. And an executive at the time said, don't get me wrong, I love White Christmas and traditional holiday movies, but how many times can you watch those things? Silent Night, Bloody Night was a great fit. Nobody ever complained for us showing it. But like, are people tuning into this in the 80s and they're having a good time? It's so confusing. You're watching this at home and you want like a fun, campy horror. I mean, this is in the 80s, like where we have Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and the slasher movie craze. And so in like 1983, you're watching this on late night Elvira and you're enjoying it. Like, I don't really see that.
I don't see it either, because this was. I can still, we can still enjoy, Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, everything like that, and all these other great slashers.
Well, they're made with artistry. They're good.
Exactly, yeah, and even some of the movies I've watched, for the podcast in the past, I was like, these are good. Like, I was like, they might not be, of course, the standards of today, obviously, but I was like, I can tell that this is good for that time. I can tell that this is really good writing. But this one, though, oh my God, yeah, I'm happy we're on the same page. I was just like, I wonder what Brian thought of this. I was just like, I hope
Brian's gonna come on and be like, it has its flaws, but this is a really important film for the genre. It really, I feel like it's ahead of its time, and the director's doing some really cool things here. I mean, I wouldn't call this a masterpiece, but I would give it an 8 out of 10. Like, I really love this and this and this. What would you have been saying?
I would have been like,
okay, Brian, woohoo!
I'll be like, okay, listen.
Like, Brian, if I could reach through the screen, I would shake you until you changed your mind.
Yes, because I was a little nervous about it. I was like, I did not like this one at all. It was this horror. You just can't make it slow. Too much dialogue, too many characters. Like, it's just too much going on. We do not have the time for that. Yeah. So one out of what? One star.
One out of
10. I'm sorry, half a star. I give it a half a star.
So yeah, I think if I were to review this on Letterboxd, it would be a half out of 5.
Half out of 5,
which doubles to 1 out of 10.
Yes,
I would give it a half. Is there a 0-star option on Letterboxd?
I think there is.
Or is half the least you can give?
It may have to be just half.
I gave a half to something recently. What was it? It was something.
I gave a half to Cats. And I gave 1 star to the remake of Black Christmas, the most recent remake of Black Christmas.
Why are we remaking this twice?
I don't know. It's like back to back.
I think was it you who told me that it was really bad? I finally did watch it last Christmas. I watched the new Black Christmas. And then I was like, well, I'll watch it. And I'm like, Andrew was right. This is pretty bad.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
But,
it was confusing.
The lowest rating I've given on Letterboxd for the last month has been Don't Worry, Darling, which I really struggled in.
Really? I have not watched it yet, and I want to watch it.
A great cast, watch it soon. A decent enough premise, and it just, from minute one, it just didn't work. Like, you knew from the first scene where it was going. You knew it's kind of like this Twilight Zone, kind of like something. Yeah. Like, and I basically guessed what was happening. Like, I didn't quite get it all the way right, but I basically, by minute 20, I was like, I think that's what this probably is. And then it was in the last third. And like, Florence Pugh's great, as always. Like, she's just a great actress to watch, but it just felt like it was too much plot just being thrown at you when you know everything you're watching for the first hour doesn't really matter when it comes to the twist ending. And then you're just like, I don't know. Like, it just came off as just like manipulative. Like, it didn't really, I couldn't really be taken in with the story because I just felt like they're just manipulating me here, and they're gonna tell me at the end what's happening, and I'll be like, okay. I don't know.
That's fine, yeah.
So I struggled with that one. I much liked some other end of the year releases. Harry Styles, I think, has a good movie in him, but I watched Don't Worry, Darling and My Policeman back to back. I enjoyed a little bit of My Policeman because we get Harry Styles sex scenes. That was nice.
I hear. I'm excited to see that.
With the man.
Okay, now my thing is, how bad? So he has so many tattoos. I'm sure they have to cover all that up.
Yeah, you
Does
don't
it
see
look bad?
anything.
Oh, you don't? Okay, good.
No,
My
so maybe either
I
that was done in makeup or done in post production. Yeah, they don't see any tattoos.
Okay, that's good because one of my biggest pet peeves with a lot of shows and movies when they want to cover up a tattoo, it looks so bad. It's like
Yeah,
green and like Grey's Anatomy does it a lot with one of the characters and or they did, he's not on the show anymore, but uh I hated seeing him. It's like, just let him have a tattoo. I was like, first of all, it fits his character. I don't know if you ever watched the show very much or ever watched it ever, but uh, he had an arm tattoo and he always wore short sleeves. So you'd always see this like this green,
mm,
nasty makeup stuff, and it was like,
yeah.
he's a bad boy. Like he can have a tattoo, but also it also might be like some people have like laws with like art law or like copyright laws if they're like whatever the tattoo is of. I don't know, but um
But yeah,
yeah,
there's
well,
probably
I'll have to
in
check
my
it out.
policeman, which is a much more just kind of standard drama. It's not like Don't Worry, Darling. There's no twist ending. It's just like a standard period drama. There's like 7 or 8 scenes of Harry Styles having sex with another man, and Harry Styles looks to really be enjoying himself. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, well, I'll watch it tonight by myself.
It's on Amazon. Give it a watch. It's not a great movie, but it's better than Don't Worry, Darling. My last piece of trivia about our film today. Did you know there's a sequel?
I did not know that. That's a plot twist right there.
Okay, so here we go. So this is weird. So in 2014, we got a remake by a company called North Bank Entertainment that went to straight to DVD, shocker. And
Okay,
then
yeah.
another company called New Wave produced a sequel called Silent Night, Bloody Night 2 Revival that came out in 2015. So in the course of in less than a year, we got a remake from one company and a sequel from another. And I guess the sequel is a direct sequel. It's not a sequel in name
Wow,
only. Like it goes into what happened in the original. It goes into flashback scenes, which,
interesting.
given
Okay,
that the movie, the 1972 movie, is in the public domain, which means that filmmakers can just use anything they want without getting penalized or sued, tells me that it's probably a very low budget movie
oh yeah,
that
oh yeah,
uses footage from the original and then they like work a new story around it. 2015.
interesting. Okay,
So speaking of two films that I will never watch, this is my favorite
you
piece
don't need
though. The
it.
last thing, Andrew, on December 10th, 2016, the film was adapted. The original 72 Silent Night, Bloody Night was adapted into a play in Brooklyn, New York for a one night only production. I would have watched that.
I would have watched it too. I
How do you
would have
make this into
watched
a
it.
play?
Here's the I honestly would have gone to seen it if I had seen the movie like now and I heard like next week they're
In
having a
LA,
play.
they were
I
doing
would
a
I
play
would go see it 100% go see it. I'm interested to see how they do this.
and done kind of
Uh,
tongue in
and I'd
cheek
let you
and
know
kind
how
of
it goes.
funny. Like
Yeah,
that would have been vastly more entertaining than the
yeah,
movie we got.
for
Like
sure. Oh,
seeing this
yeah,
story told on stage, just like the logistics of that, how they would do that in a single, like on the stage, like that would be interesting.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we'll
So yeah,
see.
so this was a rough go and not one of our more focused episodes of Film at 50, but when you give us a
No,
movie this bad, we
you
we
have
are
you have no other
it
option.
becomes just some fun banter between me and my guest as you got
Yes,
here.
we'd
If
be
you
really
want
good on HDTV. Not HDTV. QVC, like those people who sell
QVC,
stuff.
right, when we're like trying
We'd
to
be great
sell
at that.
something and we
And
have
you
four
talk and talk and
hours
talk.
we have
Yeah.
4 hours and we're just trying to sell a single product, and after about 10 minutes we've kind of done our job. So yeah, okay, so tell me about Be Real.
Yeah.
All right, so that
And how
takes us
can
to
we
our
do this?
final two
Alrighty.
segments. What would you pair this with? This monstrosity ends after 80 minutes. It's a few nights before Christmas, Andrew. What do we put on as a
Honestly,
second, more modern film?
man. I
Anything?
mean, just because horror
Something
and
else?
Christmas, It does exactly on theme. I'm going to say, and now I've never even seen it. Krampus, I hear is just kind of fun.
Krampus is a
Um,
lot of fun.
but I've never seen it, so I can't really mention. I don't
Hmm.
want to mention it. Honestly, I'm gonna say Conjuring 2 because it's
Okay.
what I like. I love the Christmas elements they add into it, and um, yeah, that's mine. Conjuring 2, I love it.
Conjuring 2, one of the best horror sequels of the last 20 years. I liked
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
original, I liked the first one, and I loved Conjuring 2. I thought it was
Yeah, I
scarier.
love the second one. It was much scarier. Yeah, and there was the Christmas music playing all the time. I loved. Yeah,
The
love it.
Christmas element I don't remember as much. I've only seen it the one
It
time.
wasn't a lot.
Okay.
It was just during Christmas time,
Okay.
and I think it may have snowed a little bit. I think, but I know they did have some Christmas like music playing and stuff like that, and
Okay.
I enjoyed that. Yeah.
When I think about that movie, my number one memory is that like daughter going up to Vera Farmiga and saying, "Mom, there's someone in the hallway." And then she walks in the
That scene.
hallway, and there's the nun just at it, like at the end of the hallway, just staring forward. And then she walks
Yeah.
into that room and is now inside of the painting. And Vera
Yep.
Farmiga's just got her, her Oscar acting going there with her eyes big, and then like the painting comes at her. I was like,
Yes.
full on popcorn in the air.
It's
I was like, I
so
was my a friend of mine. I was like hiding under her arm. I was like, this is too much.
that it's funny you say that. Literally, that is I think one of my favorite horror movie scenes of all time. Like
Of the last
it's
10 years, it's one of the
phenomenal.
best.
It's so good. And it's I just tweeted about
Like the
that scene.
hands, the fingers come out and like
Yes, and
grab the painting and then rushes at her.
my favorite part with that is like one you could just see like it's actually her eyes in the painting, which I thought, oh, so creepy. But the part when just Vera Farmiga's acting is phenomenal. But the part when the shadow is walking across and she goes and she stands behind the painting, it fills in the silhouette,
Yeah.
and Vera Farmiga was like, and she looks back, and I love it. Almost like that. I was like, that's Oscar. That's the Oscar winner right there to me. I love it.
Yeah. No, I would
What's
say
yours?
Vera Farmiga was more deserving of an Oscar nomination than Tom Cruise.
Yes, put it on the record. Tweet it out.
That'll be my next tweet, and then I'll get 1,000 attacks. What the hell are you talking
Yeah.
So my choice was probably my favorite Christmas horror film of the last 5 or 6 years. Well, I guess it would have been 6 years. Came out in 2016. Have you seen Better Watch Out?
Mm-mm.
It's like an R-rated Christmas horror film similar to the story of Home Alone. But what if
Okay.
what if Macaulay Culkin was a psychopath?
Oh, okay.
And it is it was one of those. I think I watched it on Shudder. Do you have Shudder?
I do, and I pay for it, and I have not watched it once.
What? A horror
I,
fan and you don't
you know what? I'm
watch
sorry.
Shudder?
I watched one movie on it because I downloaded it through Amazon, or I did it through Amazon, and then I have not watched it. I want to watch the 100 greatest horror movies of all time. I have not watched that yet. I want to watch that on Shudder. I need to download it on the computer on the TV and watch those things because I pay $5 a month for it, and I need to start
Oh,
watching it.
you should watch. There's some great stuff on it. Watch. It's a 4-part documentary series called Queer for Fear, and it's a bunch of queer artists and film critics talking about the history of LGBTQ representation in horror films, going all the way back
Okay.
to the beginning. And it's a 4-part documentary series. I loved it. Like it's every minute. I was like, this is fantastic. And they premiere some big films. Like they just premiered a film called Resurrection starring Rebecca Hall, and I loved
Oh,
it.
I love Rebecca
I
Hall.
gave it 4 stars. I loved it, and
Oh,
it premiered
cool.
on Shudder. So
Wow. Okay.
there's some good stuff. That's where I watched Better Watch Out. It's kind of like
Okay.
it's got a mystery element to it. So the basic premise is it's a babysitter, like a 16, 17-year-old babysitter. She babysits a 12-year-old boy really close to Christmas, and intruders start breaking into the house. And so you think it's like just, okay, it's going to be the main character is this girl. She's going to defend this 12-year-old boy from these intruders trying to break into the house while the parents are gone. But then it takes some twists and turns, and it goes to some places you're not expecting. And it's got some brutal death
Okay.
scenes. It's well shot, well acted. like the boy in the movie, the actor who plays the boy is really good, and that gets a huge
Oh,
recommendation
add it to my
from me.
phone. Okay,
Better
I
Watch
want to check
Out
that out.
from
Better watch
2016.
out.
If you like Christmas horror films, Andrew, you will love it.
Oh wait,
It's directed by Chris Peckover, story by Zach Kahn, and screenplay by Chris Peckover.
Okay.
Levi Miller, is that the actor who plays the boy?
Levi,
He is great.
the daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, the daughter's in The Visit. She's the okay. I was
Okay.
just like, she looks really familiar. Yes. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I don't
I'll check
know
that
if
out.
it's I don't know if it's still on Shudder. I feel like I saw it 4 or 5 years ago, so it might not be on Shudder right now. But let's see.
Okay.
You can. Oh, it's on
Oh
Freevee.
yeah, high rating. Okay.
You can watch it on Freevee, which isn't ideal because Freevee, it's free, but it has ads. Like every 20 minutes, it'll have like a 2-minute ad break. But you can watch it for free there if you
Okay.
want,
Okay.
or
Yeah,
find
I'll have
like
to check that
a
out.
cheap like DVD or Blu-ray or something. It's really good. Like I
Okay. Yeah,
I
I'll
gave
check it
it
out.
like I would give it like 4 out of 5. Like that's my
Okay.
rating.
Cool.
It's really
Okay.
fun.
Yeah, it has an 89 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's really awesome.
Yeah, no, it's like it gives you what you're expecting and more. Like it's more than
Okay.
just like, oh, it's just like a Christmas horror film of these intruders and they're trying to defend themselves in this house, and that's fun for a while, but then it gives you like I think there's like 2 twists in the movie. Like and you're like, "Oh, wait,
Okay.
that's what's happening here?" And then towards oh.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And
I'll watch
it's
that
really
one.
good. So that takes us into our final segment, Beyond the Flick, Christmas horror movie. So in my top 3 or 4 would be Better Watch Out, but I've got a couple others. What other Christmas horror films come to mind? Anything else?
I mean, I don't have. Wait, let's see. Conjuring 2, obviously.
Conjuring 2.
Um,
I have a couple good ones that we haven't mentioned yet.
yeah. Let's see. I know Batman Returns is not horror, but it's not
Yeah,
exactly Christmassy.
You could put that
I
on the
always
list.
list that. I always
I
list that
mean,
one as my favorite Christmas movies.
the Penguin and Batman Returns, that's like a horror film.
Ooh, when he bites his nose and the black tar comes out of his mouth. Ooh, that stuff is killing. Honestly, I'll say those two are really the ones I can think of. But what are yours? Maybe one of them.
Krampus is worth watching. That's really fun. Tony Collette's in it. It's a good cast. It's a fun one.
Tony Collette.
And I would give honorary mention to a film we talked about. That was with you, right? We talked about Tales from the Crypt.
Oh yes,
The first segment.
I meant to bring that up. Yes, I really loved that.
With Joan Collins.
Joan Collins, yeah.
That was the segment of the movie
good.
that was really until it was before I fell asleep, and then I started talking to you about a different movie. Remember?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I meant to bring that up during this. Yeah, because this is the third. I mean, technically the third. There's 3 movies involving Christmas that we watched together now, so that's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. And then I fell asleep, and then I woke up halfway through the sequel, Vault of Horror, which came out in 1973. So maybe we'll talk about that movie.
Yeah.
And then someone shared with me later, like, oh, you watched the second half of the sequel, so which must have been like when the Tales from the Crypt ended on YouTube, it must have just gone right into Vault of Horror without me pressing anything. So that was just a series of unfortunate events. But
oh, also it's time to be real.
It is?
I just got notified.
Do I show up on the screen?
Okay,
or do I...
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, I would do my front and then okay, we did it. Love it.
And then it's posted right away? Or do you post it later?
It's posted, so
okay.
It goes now. Yeah.
Okay. You're like, I'm on hour 2 of Film at 50 here. So yeah, that segment was good. A really cool 1980 Christmas horror film called it's got 2 titles. It's either You Better Watch Out or Christmas Evil, about a homicidal Santa Claus going on a massacre spree. Is a fun watch, Andrew. Okay. That's the kind of movie I was hoping Silent Night Bloody Night would be. I thought it'd be like a Christmas night Santa goes crazy movie, and it's not what it was.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that, I would recommend like a Silent Night Deadly Night or Part 2, which came out in the mid 80s. If you want like the crazy psycho Santa movie, this is another one I discovered on Shudder 2 or 3 years ago. It's called, I think on Shudder it was called Christmas Evil, but some places it's called You Better Watch Out. And there are like
Okay.
these brutal kill scenes where a full-on Santa with the beard, with the suit, you know, it's just like bashing it to the sidewalk. Like there's some scenes in that you're like, whoa, like it's pretty brutal. And if that's what you're looking
Dang.
for, it's a fun watch.
Actually,
Um,
also, I'm going to add one in. It's
yeah.
not a movie. It's season 2, American Horror Story Asylum. They had like a
Ooh.
2-part Christmas episode, I believe. I think it was 2 parts. I really loved that. It was brutal. It was like a serial killer Santa
Have
Claus.
they done, has American Horror
I loved
Story
it.
done a full season of like a Christmas horror story? That would be cool.
I don't think they've done that yet. We should pitch it to
Like if
Ryan
they
Murphy.
started, if it's like a 10 episode, they could start it mid-October, end it in mid-December, and just have the
Yeah,
whole story be set like the week leading up to Christmas and have it be like
yeah,
about a killer Santa or something. That'd be fun. I'd watch
that
that.
would be fun. I would too. And well, and you know what? And
And it could
that
be Sarah
character in
Paulson as Santa.
Asylum. Well, I feel like what they should do is make what because in Asylum, that guy, the Santa Claus guy, he had done it before and he escaped. So they should just do a prequel of what he did. That'd be much better, I
Right.
guess. But yeah, do that. Also, have you watched the new season of American Horror Story at all?
I watched the first two. It's they don't have the same cast as, but it's like a new
Yeah, it's different
cast. I'm
cast.
like, you know, there's
It's
some very
it's
handsome
yeah.
guys on it, so I'll keep watching it. But
Exactly. Ryan Murphy,
Jesus.
that's his thing. Yes. And
When I
the
watch a
thing is,
Ryan Murphy show, like even Dahmer, for God's sake, I'm just like, Jesus, he just hires all these gorgeous men, and I'm like, you got me, Ryan. I'm good. I'm good.
yes. And my boyfriend kind of making fun of the new season's good. I mean, it's interesting. It's very dark. It's not campy at all. But it's we're just like, oh no, a bunch of muscular gay boys are getting murdered. Like, okay, like, who cares? Like, come on, we don't care. Like, it's somewhat of an eye roll, but
Yeah.
it's good. It's interesting enough to keep me interested. So, and yes, the men in that show are ridiculously attractive, but I don't know. Ryan Murphy gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, so I don't know about him, but
But
it's
the
decent.
actors for his projects, usually I'm on board. But
Yes,
so, and then of course Black Christmas from '74. Have you seen the original Black Christmas?
I think I have, but it's probably been
It's
like
got
so
some
long. I don't
really
remember.
creepy scenes, and
Okay.
it's directed by the same man who directed one of the most famous Christmas movies ever from the '80s, A Christmas Story, Bob Clark.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen A Christmas Story? Like a sweet, you know, it plays on
I
TNT all
hate
day,
it.
every day. You know,
I hate Christmas Story. I'm sorry. Which is a bad. A lot of people love the Christmas Story, and
I've never met
they're
someone who
making a
hates that movie.
sequel, and they're making a
Oh
sequel,
yeah, I'm not
and
interested in that. That sounds kind of weird.
I do not like the Christmas Story. I think the kid is horribly annoying. Everyone's just mad at each other. And that, to me, that's not what Christmas is about. I'm like, I want everyone to be
Yeah.
happy. Yeah,
But if
I
so
have a
you're the
pretty strong
perfect
opinion about it.
audience. If you're not a fan of A Christmas Story, watch the director's other
Mhm.
Christmas movie, Black Christmas from
Okay.
'74. It's you know, it has some moments that predate Halloween, and we get the killer's point of view shots in Black Christmas, and that's 4 years
Okay.
before Halloween. And I mean, I know we had that in other films previously, like Peeping Tom from 1960 is often
The first
referred to
one,
as the movie that's like the first slasher film. I think it was right before Psycho came out, and it
yeah.
has the killer POV in that movie. But
I
Black
learned that from
Christmas is
Scream
doing
4.
Black Christmas. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Scream more. But
I know
Black
from that.
Christmas from '74, it does feel like something that could have come out in like '80 or '81 after Halloween,
Okay.
but it predates it, and it's doing some cool things with the genre. If I had to pick my number one
I'm gonna do
favorite
that.
Christmas
I'm gonna
horror
add it.
film, it's Gremlins from '84.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Yeah, that's a
That
good one.
movie is wonderful. It's a little bit more, I guess, like kid friendly than like a
Yeah,
Black Christmas, but like, is that? I think it's PG. I think Gremlins is PG
I think it is. Yeah, but
because it's
like,
right before the PG-13 rating comes out, and
mm-hmm.
I think what got PG-13 going was Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom were both really intense for kids, but they weren't quite at the level of an R.
Yeah.
So then they brought out the PG-13, but Gremlins is a great time. I love that
Oh
movie. I
yeah.
love the atmosphere. I love the actors in it. I love the story. the scene of the woman on that motorized seat going up the stairwell, the staircase, and it turns on full blast, and she just goes flying out the upstairs window, like the gremlin exploding in the microwave, and there's all
Oh
sorts of,
yeah.
it's just iconic stuff in that movie. It's really fun. I like the sequel a lot too. The new batch is crazy.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre and crazy, and the director got all this money, Joe Dante, to just go nuts, and that's what the sequel is. But the better movie overall is the original Gremlins from '84.
Yeah.
I also, it's like it came out right around the time I was born, right at the end of '84, so I have some love for the movie because of that too, and it's just a great ride. So if you haven't seen Gremlins in a long time, check it out. It's a fun one.
Okay.
All right, Andrew, that takes us to the
Cool.
end here. Thanks for surviving our episode on Silent Night, Bloody Night, and apologize to our listeners if we got a little off track. This was a tough movie to talk about. There was just not a whole lot of interest for me, but
No, me
I
neither.
love you as my guest and chatting movies with you. So always have a good time with you on the podcast.
Have a good time too.
So
thank you.
yeah, as we wrap up, anything you'd like to promote, or are you are you gonna get a lot of word out about everybody seeing Silent Night, Bloody Night?
Oh yeah, I'm going to go watch it. It's the best.
All your friends.
Best horror film of all time.
On Christmas Eve, you should gather the family around, everybody around the fire,
watch this
and put on Silent Night, Bloody Night. And then just leave the room and just see what happens.
Leave for an hour and 25 minutes to come back.
But yeah, anywhere where our listeners can find you online.
Yeah, I'm on social media, AR Campbell 94. I don't know. I do, and I'm on Letterboxd as well. So if movies I'm watching as well. Most of my like short movie reviews and things, most of this are rating and like a little blurb, are going to be on Instagram highlights. I'm still going to have to start my highlight number 3 of movies. I'm on highlight number 2, which I had to delete them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think. I'll just delete old movies I haven't watched in a long time, because you only have 100 highlights in one highlight. And so now I'm on, I think I have almost 200 movies on there. So I have to do I have to go on to a highlight number 3 for movies part 3. So that's going to happen really soon. So yeah.
And we're wrapping up the 1972 season. After this episode drops, there's like 3 more, and then we're doing the season finale. So I'll have to send you a list of like spring 1973 releases. We're getting into the 73 season, and we got some good stuff coming up. So yeah, I'll kind of take a look at like what are the kind of the early year films released in 73, and maybe I need to give you a better movie next time, Andrew. I got to give you something better than that. I was watching this. I'm like, oh man, Andrew's such a great guest. Why am I having him watch this really bad movie? I thought it was going to be more fun. I thought it was going to be more cheesy. That's what I was expecting. I didn't expect this. So we'll get you something better next time. And so, yeah, thanks for being here, Andrew. Thanks everyone for listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.